Greetings, everyone. Here are the main points of the video. Kremlin rocked, frontline generals snared, a fierce purge wave begins. Toy Zoymir panics as Russian officials urgently move confidential documents out, signaling something major is imminent. Russia's stealth super submarine covered itself with an iron cage to avoid strikes, an unprecedented event. A devastating strike from a distance of 2,500 kilometers, as Russia's largest oil refinery was engulfed in flames. Russia's rear is shaken, a superfactory burns, chaos erupts in Moscow's upper ranks. Welcome to the Luanban Shinsu analysis program. Before we start, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep going. Thank you, dear audience. The purge within the Russian Army Command. In Russia, General Zazykin was arrested and taken to Moscow. Ladies and gentlemen, deep cracks have quietly shaken the upper power structure in Moscow as a fierce wave of purges targets the closest interest groups to the Kremlin. The clearest evidence of this underground upheaval is the dramatic arrest of businessman Konstantin Maykov, who is known as the right-hand man and keeper of countless secrets of the notorious billionaire Arkady Zotenberg. This event was exposed by VCHKO GBU, a media channel closely connected to Russian intelligence agencies. An elite special task force in overwhelming numbers surrounded and escorted Maykov away in the middle of the night, an action that was not merely law enforcement, but a strong, intimidating message sent to the elite. Maykov was the head of a series of Zotenberg's core megaprojects, including the position of chairman of the board of directors of the Ski-Molins Company, CEO of the U.S. Teluga Special Economic Zone, as well as the National Maritime Gas Corporation and the Bantit Chemical Complex. He was directly responsible for building the polymer manufacturing plant as part of the massive gas chemical project in the U.S. Teluga region, with an enormous investment of up to 2.7 trillion rubles. Maykov's downfall is undeniable evidence that the position of tycoon Zotenberg in the eyes of President Vladimir Putin has seriously declined. In the world of Russian politics, when the head of state is no longer satisfied with a certain faction, the blow will first fall on those close to them before anything else. The bitter reality is that Arkady Zotenberg's once mighty financial empire is now on the verge of collapse as it faces severe financial crises, to the point where many key projects have started falling into wage arrears for workers. He was once a childhood friend, a longtime judo partner, and one of the most powerful businessmen in Russia, with an estimated fortune of about $5.5 billion. Now, Zotenberg seems to have been pushed to the sidelines of power. All efforts to contact President Putin directly have failed, as the Russian leader has proactively cut off all channels of communication. Even when this tycoon tried to rely on his old friend Ilgam Zaimov, one of the few close friends who still had influence and direct access to the president, the answer he received was nothing but a sense of inevitable helplessness. Before justice knocked on Maykov's door, warnings about the difficulty of the reconciliation mission had already been given, and now the wave of arrests has officially swept in amid deepening isolation. Unconfirmed rumors that Zotenberg had hurriedly fled across the Russian border only deepened the tragic picture of a tycoon dynasty that was shaking to its very roots. Not stopping at the economic tycoon class, the fire of internal purges has also spread to the high-ranking military leadership of the Russian Federation's army, right amid intense fighting. Public opinion was shaken by the news that Major General Yuri Zazykin, commander of the 114th Independent Mechanized Infantry Brigade under the 51st Army, had been arrested right in the Ukrainian territory currently controlled by Russia. General Zazykin, a seasoned battlefield commander who was once honored with the prestigious title of Hero of Russia, was escorted directly to a temporary detention center in Donetsk to await the verdict of the local court before being transferred straight to Moscow. The official reason was allegations of corruption and bribery. However, the timing of this arrest has raised numerous suspicions, as it happened right before July, when he was expected to be appointed as the deputy commander of the 14th Army Corps based in the Murmansk region. The unit under his command, the 114th Brigade, was a key assault force directly involved in the military campaign in Ukraine, including the capture and control of the strategic town of Avdiivka. This incident goes far beyond the scope of an ordinary corruption case or petty power struggles among generals. Journalist Ivan Yakovina commented that these unusual movements reflect a frightening undercurrent within the Russian military. The arrest of a general with outstanding achievements on the battlefield right before his promotion is an extremely rare and unusual occurrence. Although the official reason given is bribery, the true nature of the matter is actually the result of brutal purges at the highest levels when strategic trust has been shattered. According to analysts, these upheavals suggest a much deeper instability. The history of warfare has always shown that when pressure from the front lines combines with crises of trust in the rear, the risk of a new rebellion or a tumultuous march toward the capital, similar to what has happened in the past, could happen again. Russian occupying forces are urgently moving important documents and equipment out of Crimea. Looking back at history, since the wave of maiden protests that overthrew the former Kremlin-backed president Viktor Yanukovych, Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014 faced harsh condemnation from the international community. For a long time, the strategic city of Sevastopol has served as the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet, symbolizing military power and the far-reaching influence of Moscow in the southern seas. However, the situation on the battlefield shifted dramatically when Kiev decided to escalate military operations to tighten the noose and increase pressure on the Kremlin. Through strategic raids, the Ukrainian military has carried out a series of systematic and devastating attacks directly targeting military bases, critical supply networks, and key energy facilities of Russia. This determined siege is gradually turning the Crimean Peninsula into a truly isolated island from a military perspective, pushing this region into a comprehensive crisis as fuel supplies and essential food items begin to run out. This deliberate campaign of encirclement and isolation has upended the once peaceful life on the peninsula, creating a harsh and grim reality. Crimea now faces a ban on selling fuel to civilians. Children's summer camps have been forced to suspend operations, and the sky is constantly torn apart by the blaring of frequent air raid sirens. An anonymous resident in Sevastopol shared with international media that the danger is no longer far away out on the Black Sea as before, but now drone interceptions are happening right above their heads, turning the urban space into a perilous war zone. Despite some paralysis, the public transportation system is still trying to operate. People must accept buying and stockpiling fuel at exorbitant prices. On the peninsula's edge, the crucial bridge linking Crimea to southern Russia is filled with endless lines of hundreds of vehicles, creeping forward inch by inch for many hours while waiting for strict manual security checks reflects an extreme sense of anxiety, weighing heavily on each individual. Behind the Iron Curtain of the administration, a silent panic is quietly spreading among Russian officials in Crimea under the suffocating pressure of the war. The ATES resistance movement, a covert partisan group in occupied areas, works around the clock to gather classified intelligence for Ukrainian defense forces, exposing the occupation authorities' urgent withdrawal actions. The occupation authorities in Kyrgyz and Feodosia have received urgent orders to immediately evacuate all classified documents and high-value equipment, while strictly prohibiting administrative staff from coming to the office during the peak days of the crisis. This evacuation quickly spread to other administrative agencies across the peninsula. Quite a few officials with privileges regarding vehicles and fuel immediately took leave or reported sick to pack up and leave the peninsula, heading straight for the safe Krasnodar region on the Russian mainland. Although no official reason was announced, this wave of hasty decisions appeared right after ATES warned that Russian operational command centers had to switch to high alert around the clock to prepare for the largest bombardments from Ukraine. All these emergency withdrawal moves are the clearest evidence of the decline, weakened defense capability, and growing fear of the controlling authorities in the face of Ukraine's increasingly expansive and precise attacks targeting key administrative and military sites across the peninsula. Russia installs anti-drone cages on submarines in Novorossiysk due to Ukraine's long-range attacks. The outbreak of full-scale conflict has pushed the proud Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation into a dangerous defensive position, forcing the Kremlin to make life-or-death decisions on the military chessboard. Under the suffocating pressure from systematic and extremely brutal raids by the Ukrainian military targeting naval bases in Sevastopol on the occupied Crimean Peninsula, most notably the fierce attack with Neptune cruise missiles, which represents a series of ongoing strikes against warships to this day, Moscow has been forced to withdraw most of its warships and strategic assets. Regarding Novorossiysk port, from a rear base, Novorossiysk has reluctantly become the new headquarters, the last stronghold to preserve the strength of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. However, safety is just a distant illusion as Ukraine's range and long-range strike capabilities continue to expand, turning areas once thought to be deep behind the front lines into direct targets for kamikaze boats and various types of unmanned aerial vehicles. To protect this strategic port from the constant harassment of unmanned boats from Ukraine, the Russian military has had to set up sturdy floating barrier systems to isolate the entrance to the strait. However, the fierce and unpredictable nature of modern air defense warfare has forced the Russian military command to deploy an unprecedented defensive measure in naval history, installing steel cages against drones directly on top of strategically important submarines. British Ministry of Defense intelligence reports, cited by Business Insider, say satellite imagery has revealed an astonishing reality. The conning towers of 3 Stealth Kilo-class submarines docked at Novorossiysk are now covered by special cage armor structures, and a 4th submarine at this base is also being prepared to be equipped with a similar system. The published satellite images have clearly captured 2 submarines bearing this strange layer of armor. Intelligence circles in London insist that this is a highly urgent preventive measure in response to the increasingly formidable effectiveness of long-range attacks from Ukraine. This kind of cage armor is a familiar sight, welded onto tanks and armored vehicles to protect against shrapnel or suicide drones. But having to apply it to submarines which are designed to operate deep underwater reveals a harsh reality. No advanced Russian weapon can claim to be invulnerable against its adversary's technological capabilities. The main purpose of the anti-drone cage armor is to counter threats from above. It has become a symbol of Russia's determined, yet makeshift defensive efforts to save its most valuable equipment. In a dramatic development exposed by the prestigious newspaper, The Telegraph, the super yacht Scheherazade, a symbol of ultimate luxury that Western media have long accused of being closely linked to President Vladimir Putin, hastily left European waters to flee to the port of Murmansk in Russia's far north. The evacuation of this floating mansion was anything but quiet. It was escorted and strictly protected by a formidable force of Russian Navy warships. That extreme caution stemmed from the growing fear that this yacht could become the next target of Ukraine's long-range drones. The moment the FP-1 drone attacked Russia's key Omsk oil refinery, a major fire broke out. A terrifying turning point in the energy attrition strategy has occurred, completely shattering the illusion of a safe rear deep inside Russia. Shocking footage spreading across social media platforms captured the moment an FP-1 drone traveled an incredible distance of up to 2,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border to strike the Omsk oil refinery, Russia's largest refinery and an invaluable economic lifeline for the Kremlin. A fierce fire broke out after the attack, quickly engulfing the 2 core distillation towers, VAT-10 and VAT-11, threatening to cripple much of the massive processing capacity of up to 21 million tons of oil per year at this giant refinery. This is a historic milestone that has long been anticipated and awaited. Russia's proud energy symbol now lies squarely in Kiev's destructive crosshairs. This devastating blow has pushed Russia's energy system into a severe crisis, as the specialized components needed to replace such large-scale oil distillation towers have now become extremely scarce commodities within the country. After a series of other oil refineries had already been devastated one after another, all efforts for a quick recovery have almost reached a dead end. The strategic battle map is being ruthlessly redrawn as Ukraine proves that no boundary is inviolable. As most of the oil refineries that were previously within range have already been devastated by fire and smoke, the list of next targets is growing longer as Ukraine continuously pushes the limits of its technology. The leadership in Moscow is forced to face a harsh reality. Industrial facilities located as far as 2,800 to 3,400 kilometers away. Even oil refinery complexes located at extreme distances of up to 6,400 kilometers deep within the continent have become potential targets and could be attacked at any time. This fear is completely justified as Firepoint, the manufacturer behind the famous Flamingo missile line, has just revealed that they are testing a new upgraded version of the FT-1 drone with a destructive range of up to 3,400 kilometers. This is a technological declaration of war, signaling a new wave of attacks that is about to sweep through Russia's remaining energy complexes, turning every strategic economic facility into a vulnerable domino, collapsing under the pressure of a large-scale war of attrition. While the distant rear is engulfed in blazing flames, on the front lines, especially in Crimea and the occupied territories, Ukraine's siege campaign is tightening like a pair of pincers, choking off every resource the enemy needs to survive. Crimea is now not only exhausted by a severe fuel shortage, but also plunged into darkness due to a widespread power outage crisis, as every energy lifeline has been systematically worn down and drained by continuous Ukrainian military strikes. The proud Crimean Bridge, the ultimate symbol of power, military logistics, in the Kremlin's ambitions in the southern seas, has become a legitimate and extremely valuable target. The moment this strategic bridge receives a decisive blow is only a matter of time, as the Ukrainian military has clearly demonstrated that they possess both the political will and long-range technological capability to carry out a devastating attack, completely severing the last line of communication for the occupying forces on the peninsula. So, in your opinion, what is the purpose behind the internal purges, especially of Putin's battlefield generals, and why?